Welcome back, guys. We're here for another round of Mobility Minute. This one's for the runners. So we're gonna do a little run recovery today. So we've been running a lot in CrossFit, but I also know it's getting closer to that marathon here in Houston. So we're gonna do a little run recovery, just some little flow here to get us loosened up after a run. We can do it pre-run too, but mostly focused on recovering after a good long run. So you're gonna need probably a lacrosse ball today, and some kind of like strap or band. So I'm gonna use a resistance band, but you can use like a belt or a yoga strap if you have something like that. Just something to hook your leg and pull it towards you will do. And then yeah, a little bit of space and a mat. We'll get going. Let's get started with our soft tissue work. I'm gonna use my RAD kit. I like the RAD kit because we have different size balls for our soft tissue work. So we could go with the standard kind of lacrosse ball size. This is even still a little bit smaller. I'm gonna go with the even smaller one. That is gonna feel like more pressure, right? It's a little bit smaller, so that pressure is a little more fine point. And we're gonna roll the bottom of the feet first. Let's put my ball on the ground. Now this guy's little, so it's gonna hurt a little more. Not like hurt, bad hurt, but good hurt. And I'm gonna start by rolling the arch. So I'm going right up and down the arch of the foot. We're gonna change it up in a second, but we just wanna hit this arch first. Get a few good rolls. And just kind of move across the foot, but still going up and down. Get a nice few good long rolls in there. Then what I want you to do is you're gonna put it right in front of the heel, right off the bone. So it's not on my heel, it's just in front of it, kind of right where that arch starts. I'm gonna push down a little bit, and then I'm gonna windshield wiper my foot. So that ball is kind of scrubbing around my heel. It's usually a little sensitive right in front of that heel bone. That's where that plantar fascia is attaching to the heel. It takes on a lot of stress when you run. We're gonna go ahead and move that ball to the forefoot. So just behind the balls of the feet, kind of the base of the toes. And then same thing, we're gonna windshield wiper. That's usually a good one as well. Just trying to get some circulation to the feet, trying to loosen up some of these intrinsic foot muscles. They take on a lot when we run. Your foot takes a beating. This is also just really good if you've got like plantar fasciitis, heel pain, anything like that. Just loosen it up. We'll go ahead and do the other foot now. So we'll go back to our long roll. So the whole length of the arch. Just up and down. You want to find those areas that are a little sensitive, and you can always hold it there. Spend a little extra time there. Ooh. This one's spicy. Let's go to our heel scrub. So I'm going to put the ball right in front of the heel. Put a little bit of pressure down, and then I'm windshield wipering the foot again. So I'm just kind of scrubbing around that heel. You can usually apply a little more pressure there. Oh yeah, that's nice. Just a little scrub. And then we're gonna move it to the forefoot, so a bit closer to the balls of the feet, the base of the toes. Put a little bit of pressure, and we'll windshield wiper again, side to side. You're gonna feel those metatarsal heads kind of separate, right? The foot kind of bows over that ball. That usually is very relieving. Create a little bit of separation. A little bit of space between the toes, basically. Now you're welcome to keep going on the foot if you would like, spend a little more time on the feet. You can just pause the video and get a little more soft tissue work on the foot, but we're gonna go ahead now move to the piriformis. So we're gonna get to the ground with our ball. All right, so I'm gonna switch my ball, my RAD ball out. So I'm gonna use the slightly bigger one. And we're gonna go ahead and go after the piriformis. The piriformis is almost always tight in runners just because of the repeated motion that happens when we run, right? That kind of leg coming out in the front and then striking the ground and then kicking out behind us. That piriformis is important for that hip motion. So I'm gonna put this ball, my sacral bone is here, I'm gonna put it just a little bit further out. And then from there, I can do a few things. I can do some knee hugs, some flexion extension of the hip. I can also take it out and around. So if the flexion and extension isn't hitting much for you, take that leg out and around. That usually hits it. Oh yeah. And then play with the position of the ball. So right now I have it kind of high. I can move it a little bit lower and get a little bit below the piriformis. There's some more rotators of the hip that get pretty knotted up for runners. They're called the deep 6 external rotators of the hip. They're deep to your gluteus maximus, your booty cheek muscle, and they're super important for stabilizing the hip. And that, like I said, that repeated motion of running just really causes them to tighten up because of the demand on the hip. Running is a sagittal plane motion, and it's just over and over and over again. It's a lot of force coming up through the hip. So those hip stabilizers, like the deep 6, are working really hard all the time. Just get a few good rolls. We can come up higher and a little bit out to the side. So once we come up here and we're kind of underneath our high hip bone, now we're getting into the deeper glute med, glute minimus. Also good for runners. It's still a pelvic stabilizer, so it's working hard when we're running, because running is always on a single leg, right? You're just switching single leg stance. And so that requires a ton of pelvic stabilization. And so high demand on the deeper glutes as well. Go ahead, switch. Same thing, I'll probably start right off the edge of that sacrum. Flexion and extension might be enough for you. I like to go out and around. Ooh, this side's a little worse. Get a few passes. If you notice the position is a little tender, you can kind of hold that. Do some small circles. This side for me is a little bit worse. Move the ball down. Get to those deeper, lower 6 rotators of the hip. Whew. The more you do soft tissue work, the better it will be. You will naturally desensitize. And you'll notice that your tissue is softer, a little more pliable. You're able to relax more into it and get more out of it. Come up a little bit higher, so just beneath my kind of high hip bone on the back side, get the deeper glutes. Deeper glutes are sensitive on almost everybody. Like I said, they work really hard to stabilize the pelvic and pretty much all forms of locomotion, walking, running. They're always keeping your pelvis level. So they're working all the time. Woo. You can roll over that ball. So I'm used to my soft tissue work, so I can handle quite a bit of pressure, so I can get my whole pelvis over that ball. And it's a little sensitive, but it's not bad. For some people, that's a lot. A few more. All right. For this next part, you're going to want a strap or a band. We're going to get into our hamstrings and our adductors and really try to stretch these guys out after a long run. So I'm going to go grab my band, and then we'll get to stretching. All right, so I got my thick band. Like I said, you can use any kind of strap. So if you have like a yoga strap, or if you have even just like a belt, like a leather belt or fabric belt, that works too. You just need something to hook your foot. We're going to go straight leg raise. I want to make sure this other leg stays on the floor. The knee's going to stay extended. So as I bring that foot up towards my head, I want to make sure the knee stays straight. If I start to bend, I'm no longer stretching my hamstrings, and that's what we're aiming for. So we're going to start with about a 30-second stretch, and then we're just going to do a little PNF sequence, because PNF can really open up the hamstrings really quickly. And all that is just layering in some contractions. So we'll just give this about 30 seconds. You want to feel this in the hamstring. You can also relax your foot. So if you're pushing through that foot, you're actually engaging your calf muscle, and that's actually going to create more tension. And you're going to feel it less in your hamstring. And you can play with that. So pull your foot towards your face, and you'll feel your calf and your hamstring stretch increase. We're gonna go ahead and start our PNF. So I'm gonna push into the band like I'm trying to send this leg back to the floor. We're only gonna push for about 10 seconds. Ready, set, go. So you're turning on the hamstring. 3, 2, 1. As soon as you relax, I want you to pull the leg a little bit further. It should be easier to get that leg a little bit higher. We're gonna get 2 more. Just give ourselves a second here before we do our next contraction. And then same thing, ready, set, go. So I'm pushing in to that hamstring, trying to send that heel back to the floor. 3, 2, 1, relax, pull a little bit further. My hamstring's really starting to open up now. This is good, this is what we want. Those hamstrings tend to shorten after a long run just because of the high demand, the high volume on the hamstrings. All right, 1 more, ready, set, push. Turn that hamstring on. 3, 2, 1, relax. We'll get 1 final stretch here. Hopefully you gain another inch or so. Definitely feel the hamstring on this one. Get a few ankle rolls. Woo! Notice how when you pull that foot closer, it really increases that stretch. All right, before we switch, we're actually going to take the leg out to the side and stretch the adductor. So just let that foot fall, but keep that foot about 90 degrees out from the hip. You're really going to feel this in that adductor. That's what we want. Depending on the person, you might feel this a little more towards the knee. Nothing wrong with that. You might feel a little more towards the groin. Your adductor runs almost, well, one of them does cross the knee, but the rest of them come almost all the way down to the knee. So adductor magnus reaches down to the knee, and then you've got longus and brevis and pectineus. They're a little bit higher up. But magnus is a very important muscle. It does a lot, contributes a lot of hip actions, so it's usually the one that's going to feel the tightest. It's when you're going to feel it closer to the knee. Just hit a nice little adductor stretch before we switch and do the other hamstring. Good. We'll unhook that foot and we'll do the other side. So we'll start with that hamstring stretch again. Make sure bottom leg is straight. Keep the knee straight. And let's just see how far we can go. That's about all I got. So almost 90, not quite. We'll give it about 20-30 seconds before we start our PNF stretches. From here, you can play with the positioning of the foot. Go side to side. Notice any tightness. Is it easier to go in? Is it easier to go out? Pull your toes towards your face and feel how that increases the stretch. Passive stretching is pretty good after a run. It's just a nice way to decrease that tone, reduce some of that tightness sensation that happens after a run. It's also just really good for circulation, lymphatic drainage. That's why it's so good for recovery. We're going to go ahead and push into that foot now. We're trying to send the heel down towards the floor, really turn it on that hamstring. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, relax. Pull that foot a little bit higher. We'll give it another second or so before we do our next one. All right, here we go. Another contraction. Ready, set, go. Trying to send that heel to the floor. 3, 2, 1. Relax. Let it go. Hopefully you find a little more. A little bit beyond 90 now. That's nice. And we're going to get one more contraction. Your contraction doesn't have to be all out. It can be 70% or so. You can also do PNF when you're, if you're dealing with like a little bit of soreness. You can just do it at a lighter intensity. All right, last one. Ready, set, go. Just trying to send that leg back to the floor. 3, 2, 1. Final stretch. We're going to pull a little bit closer. Try to relax, completely let go. Give ourselves about 20 seconds. And then we're gonna kick that leg out to the side again and stretch the adductor. Just a nice passive stretch for the adductor. Just lengthen it out. When you're ready, go ahead. We'll take that leg out to the side. I want to try to keep it close, keep the foot close to me. I don't want to let it drop to the floor. And I want to make sure the toes are pointed up. So if your toes are this way, pointed to the ceiling, I want you to turn them up towards your head. Just make sure that we've rolled that leg open so we're actually stretching the adductors. And again, you might feel this more towards your groin, you might feel it more towards your knee. I actually feel this side more towards my groin, whereas on the right, I felt it more towards my knee. So just make note of that. It's good to know your body, know where your areas of restriction are. A little bit longer, and then we're going to transition to a low drag in PNF. It's going to be a pretty intense stretch on the quad and the hip flexor. You'll continue to use your strap or your band. Good, we'll come out of that. So let's transition. We're going to flip over. And we're going to start in a kneel. And I'm going to take the band and I'm going to hook it around my foot. Right? Get my kneel position here. Now I'm going to bring my foot up first. So I'm in this lunge. I'm starting to draw the foot up. I'm going to loop the band over my shoulder. And then I'm just going to reach towards the floor. So you might need to adjust a little bit. As you reach to the floor, you're going to feel this in your quad and your hip flexor. So I want you to adjust as you need to try to get that hip opened up. So if we're super bent here, we're going to feel it more in our quad. I want to feel it in the hip flexor as well. So we need to drop the pelvis towards the floor. And this is where it starts for me. Now we're going to hold this for a little bit. But then when I say go, we're actually going to kick into that band as if we're trying to straighten the knee. All right, we're ready. We're going to kick into that band or that strap. Ready, set, go. So it's like you're trying to send the top of your foot to the floor. 3, 2, 1, relax, let it go. You might have a little more room. You can pull that band a little tighter. This one is intense. You can feel this in my kind of like high quad. Give it a second. We'll go ahead, ready, we're going to contract again, so try to straighten that knee. Feel that quad firing. 3, 2, 1, relax. You can pull a little bit tighter if you've got a little more space. We'll get one more and then switch. All right, last one. Let's go ahead, contract. Push into that band. 3, 2, 1, relax. Let's get just a little bit of a hold here to try to relax. Think about dropping that hip towards the floor. This one's pretty intense, but it's very good for runners. Those upper quads the quads in general, but the upper quads especially, the hip flexors tend to get a little short and tight. From constantly picking those knees up and swinging that leg forward. So I'm going to go ahead and switch now. Hook the foot. Before I pull it up, I'm going to bring my opposite leg up so I'm steady. Then we're going to allow that knee to bend. Bring that band up and over the shoulder. Hold it with the opposite arm. Now this hand comes to the floor. Readjust as you need. And then we're going to try to drop that hip to the floor. So that hip is open. So I don't want you super bent. I want you to try to let that pelvis come forward and towards the floor. Start with just a little passive hold here. So I'm just trying to relax, get used to the position before I start doing my contraction. All right, here we go. So we're gonna try to send the foot to the floor, contract the quad, about 70%. Doesn't have to be all out, but we want a pretty strong contraction. 3, 2, 1, relax. The position should be a little easier. You can pull that foot a little bit closer to the butt. You don't have to try to pull the foot closer each time. You can definitely just keep the leg where it's at and just do the contractions. It's still pretty effective. Let's go ahead, hit our second rep. Ready, set, go. Try to send the top of the foot to the floor. Ooh, I'm shaking. 3, 2, 1, relax. Ooh, that's nice. Bring that band over the shoulder more, get that foot a little bit closer. This is really lengthening out your rectus femoris, which is both a knee extensor and a hip flexor. We'll get one more and then a little bit of a passive stretch. Ready, set, go. About 70%, we're almost there. 3, 2, 1, relax. Let it go. You can pull it closer if you've got room. And we're just going to hang out here for a little bit. You can move your pelvis, right? Feel how that changes the stretch. You can move the leg, right? For me, it's a little more tight on the outside, so I drop my outer pelvis to the floor. Some people, it's the groin. They may go this way. Whatever feels right, whatever feels most restricted, that's what we want to open up. And then we can come out of that. Just let that band go. Woo! All right. That's all we got for today. Just a little recovery after a run. We did a little soft tissue work on the feet, help recover the feet, a little piriformis work, and then we stretched out the hamstrings, adductors, and a little bit of quad and hip flexor PNF. So just good stuff to help you recover from a run. Hopefully you guys like this one, and we'll see you next week. We'll do another round.